English teacher here at Hamilton Southeastern High School, and this public forum tonight is sponsored by the Hamilton Southeastern Education Association. We have a small committee of teachers from the district, and we interviewed all of the candidates behind us. They also answered a questionnaire for us, and then this is our third part of that we offer for the community, and this is the public forum. So again, we'd like to thank everyone for coming. We appreciate it, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much. And Kelly serves as the Vice President of Political Action for the Hamilton Southeastern Education Association. Just a few reminders to you. You probably all have this piece of equipment. Everything works better if it's off or on silent. So let's check to make sure that we've got that taken care of. Also, I want to make you aware that some of the candidates brought materials and they're all displayed outside. And I'm sure they would welcome you to pick some of those materials up before you leave here this evening. I also wanted to make sure that you were aware that when voting, you get to vote for 3 candidates, but you can't pick and choose. So you vote for one candidate from each township. So even if you live in Wayne Township, you also vote for one candidate from Delaware and one candidate from Fall Creek. So all candidates are elected at large, but there will be 3 candidates who win, one from each township, if that makes sense. All right? So it's very important. All these candidates, have something that can be shared with you. Lastly, I want to make you aware that the school board is very important and near and dear to us. On the ballot, it's not going to be listed first. I think that the presidential race is kind of going to get that top billing. And so if you are a person who plans to vote straight ticket, you push, Democrat, Republican, that doesn't vote for any of these fine folks who are investing their time to run. Because school board is nonpartisan. They are not connected to a political party when running. And so this will be probably about the end of the ballot. One candidate mentioned that judge retention is the very last thing. Yes or no, whether you keep these state judges. So that's laying the kind of the ground rules for the election, hopefully making it clear for all of you. If you have questions, I'm sure candidates or myself will stay around afterwards. Just so that you know, candidates have prepared an opening statement. We'll be going from your left to the right on the opening statements, and then after that, the order will be mixed up, and I'll try to vary it as much as I can, just to keep the candidates guessing and keep you guessing. So candidates have 2 minutes for their opening statement, and they have, and so we'll get started with that. So we'll start with Delaware Township, Mr. Harness.
Yes, thank you. My name is Adam Harness. Running in Delaware Township. I'm running for school board so that I can mainly try and increase the level of communication between the school board and the overall community, so that as things change, everyone in the overall community knows what's going on. Also, I'm sorry. With the, sorry, that's all.
Okay. I think, Mr. Harness, it would help if you take the microphone off the stand and hold it closer to you. So if everybody wants to do that,
Okay.
yeah, well, it's karaoke night here.
Okay. Yes, my name is Adam Harness. To increase communication throughout the overall school board. I know with the iPad rollout, there was some late communication problems. So I think overall increasing the communication is going to help initiatives like that as we move them forward and over the next 4+ years. And that will help. Yes. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Harness. Mr. Jones.
My name is Brad Jones. I'm also running in Delaware County. Most of you may not have seen me or know who I am, but I have been involved with the school system for the last 6 or 7 years. I have 2 sixth graders at Riverside Intermediate. I know there's a couple other teachers in the room, which is great to see. feel free to talk to them about my kids. I don't think they were too bad in the classroom. I have been active in the PTOs. I've been active in the schools since day one. Will continue to be active for the next 10 years or however long my girls are there, and probably continue after that as I'm here to live in Fishers for a long time. I've been attending actually the board meetings for about the last 2 years because I had questions on what was going on in the community, and communication does definitely need improved. There is a lot of communication out there, but it doesn't always make it home. So when I have a question, I go to the source. I went to the school board meetings about 2 years ago and have been going ever since to get those answers as to what's going on with the referendums or tax dollars, to learn the different decisions that are being made on the iPads and whatnot. I wish I had known, 5 years ago that I could have gone, because I know when the iPad rollout officially came out, 5 years ago, and we were doing pilots, that, I was in the PTO meetings talking to Dr. Smith and the others saying, hey, there's issues, have you considered, this and this and this. My background is technology. I work with online websites. I work with technical people. So I hear and know a lot of the technology stuff. And in attending a lot of the board meetings, there's been times where I've seen that I could contribute to the conversations if I were part of the board, so that I could contribute, where I could have potentially helped make some decisions a little quicker. In a lot of cases, our current board is doing a great job, and we're getting there. And so I think I can help there. Also on the fiscal side, I think we're going to talk about that tonight. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be asked on how we're doing things, and we'll continue to do that. And again, the more of you, the more of us that are involved in the board, the more that we can do. But ultimately, my perspective is, it's all about the kids. We've got great schools. I've heard some of the candidates running for other areas in Indiana, and the schools we've got are fantastic, and you look at the issues they're dealing with versus us. So we've got great school. It's all about our kids. It's giving them the opportunities, every kid, the opportunity to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Shara.
Thank you. I am Amanda Shara. I love school. I've always loved school. It was my refuge. I grew up in a really bad neighborhood on the Near East Side and an even rougher house. I changed schools 10 times. By the time I got to my guidance counselor, Mrs. Ballow's office, my senior year, I just wanted out. She looked at me and she said, "Where do you want to go to college?" College was not even on my radar. I just wanted out. She helped me apply to National Honor Society, Presidential Academic Fitness Award, and even took me on a college visit. Because of her, I was able to graduate from Indiana University Bloomington on the dean's list with a degree in accounting, auditing, and tax. My subsequent work experience as a federal government auditor and tax preparer, as well as now a family agribusiness owner, sharpens my accounting skills. Along with my education and work experience, I have been passionately involved in my 2 kids' schools for the last 15 years as classroom volunteer, photographer, gardener, PTO, parent, curriculum advisor, room mom, tribe mom, blood drive, teacher appreciation, and bookstore volunteer, and more. At HSE schools, we need to focus on issues such as safety. Every bus, every seat, every student needs a seatbelt, and mentors connecting the community with the disconnected students at school. I am uniquely equipped with education, work, and life experiences to serve as the best candidate for Delaware Township on the school board, and would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Mrs. Shara. Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I want to thank all of you for coming out to take part in this very important process. Right now, our community is in a critical period of its growth cycle. The city, the schools, the business community, and the citizens all have to work together to achieve our common vision, and that's Fishers being a great place to live and work. The school district is a vital part of that, and the school board itself is even a greater part of it, because the school board needs to be the glue, the collaborator that helps bring all of these different pieces together. My 18 years experience in banking, over 10 years of board experience, and most importantly, my 18 years as an HSE parent make me uniquely qualified to help lead the way on the school board with these things. I have 4 things that I would focus on going forward. Number 1, supporting and advocating the continuation of the arts programs and expanding them when possible. This is especially important to help creative thinking, outside the box thinking, along with all of the typical academic subjects. Number 2, transparent and prudent financial management, continuing that, making sure that the community is being communicated with. Number 3, supporting creative teaching and learning in our schools, as we're doing right now. A lot of project-based initiatives. That's especially important for our business community. And finally, and most importantly, making HSE an employer of choice going forward for all of our staff and teachers, not only today, but also the future staff and teachers that we'll be bringing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Those are the 4 candidates for Delaware Township. Now moving to Fall Creek Township, Mr. Bodor.
Thank you, and good evening. It's my pleasure to be here speaking with all of you this evening. And for my opening statement, I just want to share with you a little bit about my background and experience, and as some of the other candidates, describe a few of my goals for running for school board. First of all, I am a licensed educator in the state of Indiana. I have 6 years of classroom teaching experience. I had the good fortune of teaching in a number of different school environments, some of which were urban, some of which were more suburban. I took my teaching talents to the West Coast and taught in the Seattle area during that time. After moving back to Indiana, I had the opportunity to work with the Department of Education in the data reporting and warehousing division. So I have a strong understanding of how data collection and data analysis can both help in the classroom and also create challenges when it's used for accountability. In between those 2 stints, I also have experience in the private sector, working in business, finance, marketing, retail, and media production in various times in my career. My interest in joining the school board stems similar to Mr. Whalen's. I have 4 different things that I'd like to focus on. One is individualized instruction. We now have tools, more so than we ever have before, to meet students where they are in their learning goals, and using technology and other methods to help them learn more effectively. Secondly, I would like to see us pursue more authentic engagement for our students. So apprenticeship programs, internship programs, partnerships within the community so they can actually apply the skills that they have learned. Thirdly, I would like to see us innovate and integrate our curriculum a little bit more. Eliminate some of the silos and barriers between the different subject matters and show students how that content matter integrates in real life. And fourthly, I'd like to keep the district on track with the fiscal sustainability for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bodor. Yeah, we'll use the new microphone there for the next karaoke group here. Mr. Everett.
Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Myself and the rest of the candidates greatly appreciate you taking a few hours out of your week to join us for this important forum as we talk about the growth and future of HSEA schools. My name is Kent Everett. I'm a candidate for Fall Creek Township. My main reason I'd like to run for the school board is my family. We have a 4-year-old son at home. He'll be starting kindergarten 1 year from now, and we'll be starting the process all over. We have an 8th grader and a 5th grader as well, so we are going to have a lot of years in the school district when all is said and done. We're very happy about that. We're very blessed to live in Fishers, in the HSE school district. The main reason we moved here was because of that. My wife and I have lived here for 11 years, and our children have been educated here in HSE the entire time. I'm a 21-year employee of Rubber Products Distributors in Indianapolis, a sales accountant manager, and that is my employment. I'm a graduate of Ball State University from 1994, and I graduated from Warren Central on the east side of Indianapolis in 1989. The main things I plan to concentrate, if elected, are future redistricting, taking an active part of that and helping with a workable solution that works for all of our families. Also dealing with the current funding issues that are presented to us every at least 2 years when the state budget is done every 2 years. And finally, improving communication between the school board and the school district. I would like to see live streaming of school board meetings going forward. Thank you again for your attendance tonight. I really appreciate it, and so does the rest of the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Howard Stevenson, and I want to first start out by thanking Janet Chandler and the Hamilton Southeastern Education Association for hosting this very important candidates forum that we have today. My wife and I moved to Fisher 16 years ago, and the primary reason we moved to Fishers was because of the cohesive community that we have here, and it's a great place to raise a family, and then primarily because of the great schools that we have. We have 3 sons, and all 3 sons that we have, they all graduated from Hamilton Southeastern High School. Actually, my 2 oldest sons did, and my youngest son is currently a senior here at Hamilton Southeastern High School. They have all been educated throughout the Hamilton Southeastern School District, both through elementary, intermediate, junior high, and high school. In addition to that, my wife is a teacher here in the district. She's a 4th grade teacher at Geis Elementary. She has been a teacher in the district for approximately 16 years. So I believe as a parent and also a husband of a teacher in the district, I am sensitive to the needs that the teachers have, and then also as a parent who's been through the whole process. I am an attorney by trade. I've been practicing law for 23 years, and I believe I'm also an adjunct law professor at Indiana University School of Law here in Indianapolis. I believe those skill sets that I have as a lawyer are invaluable tools that we need on the school board when we face legal issues that we have. One of my primary goals that I have as a school board member is to focus on the engagement and the achievement gap that we have with some of our students. We want to hone in and narrow our focus to address those kids. So the 95% graduation rate that we have and we celebrate, if we focus on those students, we can even improve and enhance that percentage. And I thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of this candidates forum.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. And those are our 3 Fall Creek Township candidates. And now we'll move to Wayne Township. Mrs. Scheffler.
Thank you, and I too thank you for all coming to this forum. It is really neat to see a lot of individuals come to these events, and it would be wonderful to see your faces at the school board meetings as well. I just wanted to let you know that my name is Sylvia Scheffler, and I've been living in this school district now over 35 years. And it's a unique perspective that I have because of the history, seeing all those changes that have occurred from that point when it was just like a farming community, even out here along Oleo Road. And we happen to have lived on Oleo Road those eons ago, and how it has changed so much now. And we find that even for the past 16 years that I've been on the school board, that changes have kind of escalated, it appears to be. So I feel it's important for, as an incumbent, to remain on there in order to give a perspective that perhaps new members, or even those who have been on for a short period of time, may not have at that point in their lives. So I would like to see that we need to provide our students with those knowledge and the skills necessary for their education, their careers, lifelong learning, and the responsible citizenship as they leave this district, if that's the case. I believe that one of the jobs of the board is to regularly and thoroughly evaluate our teaching and educational programming and remain open to those educational ideas that may come. So I would like you to understand that I do live in Wayne Township, and as you have been told already, we are given positions of living in those townships, yet everybody in the district does vote for us. So I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Scheffler. Mrs. Wright.
Hi, my name is Sharon Wright, and I have 3 children in the school district, my husband and I do. We have an 8th grader at Fall Creek Junior High, a 6th grader at Fall Creek Intermediate, and a 3rd grade daughter at Durban Elementary. We have been in the district since our oldest started kindergarten. I want to start by saying I guess I'm running for school board because I have a real passion for education. I'm not an educator. In what I call my previous life, I worked at Roche Diagnostics in their marketing for diabetes care. After I had children, I decided to stay at home with the children. And so I feel like as Connor, our oldest, started school, that I've kind of had my own little education in school, what it is now, and in Hamilton Southeastern in particular. I have been in the classroom with my children numerous times, so I have a real understanding of how the classrooms work on a daily basis. Then I got involved in the PTO and volunteering for things. Then I stepped up my game and became, I was on the PTO board for a year at Durban. I've been the PTO president at Durban for the past 5 years. I am also the PTO vice president at Fall Creek Junior High, so we started that last year. I have been on PTOs for a long time. I've been part of the Superintendent Advisory Council for the past 5 years with Dr. Smith and Dr. Bork, so I feel like I have an understanding of the school district as a whole. I also served on the executive committee of the Advanced HSE PAC, so I got my education in funding. So I feel like putting all these pieces together that I am well equipped to serve the school board in a variety of ways. I mean, I understand from a parent perspective, from a teacher perspective, and I know when I listed my 3 things that I would like to focus on, or what I thought were biggest issues, growth is one of them. Wayne Township is getting ready to grow. Adequate state funding, because that does happen every 2 years. And of course, we just did the referendum. We're good there for 7. And then also integrating the iPads and the HSE 21 learning. I'm a huge proponent of the iPads. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. I wanted to let you know, audience members, that you were given a chance to have a card when you came in. And this form goes better if you put questions on here. And then hold them up, or you can deliver it to someone here on the first row, and they will bring them up to me. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. And yes, if we can have somebody collect questions. Thank you so much, Abby, for stepping up there. And we will get started. This first question is going to go to Mr. Everett. And just so that you understand, all candidates will respond to questions. They have 1 minute to do so. So the first question is from Mr. Everett. And one of the items that's been mentioned in opening statements, several people addressed technology and addressed HSE 21. So my question to you is, what does HSE 21 mean to you? The district articulated a vision the school board did a few years ago. And so moving forward, if elected, how would you focus on HSE 21? What does it mean to you? Mr. Everett, up first.
Well, I think it's really important, and I applaud the board and the district for doing the HSE 21 program. I do agree the one-to-one program is very beneficial to our students going forward. They're going into a technology-filled world that we are all living in right now, so actually I'm a little envious of them because they're going to get to learn on the fly, whereas we've all had to learn as adults. So I think learning as students they're a little more fortunate in that aspect. But I definitely agree with the district's stance on that. My wife and I have a little bit of concern with putting the iPads in the hands of the kindergartners next year, although we have found out that they will not have to carry those to and from school each day. So that's a good thing, but I know these kids are using the iPads at home as it is, and I applaud the district's position so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. We'll move now to Mrs. Scherer.
Thank you. I would say HSE 21 would be best integrated using components of curriculum that teachers can individually establish and pull units out of different sources. So if a particular publisher had a unit that they really liked, you're not stuck with what was decided on in one particular science book. So the one-to-one initiative allows the children to, now we have Microsoft, hopefully the Google will come back next year, and they will be able to open up to different publishers and integrate different learning methods.
Thank you, Mrs. Scherer.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that my time was done.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mrs. Wright.
Well, I think HSE 21 is just a different way of thinking. School is really nothing like it was when I was in school. My daughter was part of the pilot program last year as a second grader. I thought she did amazing things with her iPad. And actually, I was more impressed with the things she was doing in her classroom than I was with my older boys who also had iPads. It's just the kids being able to have the iPad and not only research, but interact. One example I used at the school board meeting when I talked about being a proponent of it is they did a reader's theater. I've done these with classes before. It's the kids reading plays. They would never know their place. They would never know their part. They couldn't follow along. You put an iPad, and they know they've got a fun background, and they knew where they were. They were so engaged. They spoke with inflection. It was the best reader's theater I'd ever seen. So it's just a different way of thinking and approaching, and it's innovative, and it's fun, and it's engaging for the students.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Mr. Harness.
In general, I feel as though the principles of HSE 21 can be separated from the actual device, the collaboration that it focuses on can be done with or without a device. And I think moving forward, we need to make sure that we're not forcing the device to do things that we can do without a device. You know, we can allow the students to sit in a group and to do things without it being also with an iPad, also with a computer, whatever it is. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harness. Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. Well, first off, I'd like to say I think unfortunately HSE 21 got a bad rap because it got tied immediately to iPads. So everyone associates it immediately with iPads. So really what it's about is new and creative ways of teaching and learning and working in group dynamics. Where else are you going to be able to read a book and interact with an author who's in New York City that can come into the classroom and speak about your book. A great example is that I saw online was Mrs. Brzuchek in her classroom just recently, in her second grade class, they redid all the walls, and instead of doing cut out pumpkins all along the walls, they did things with QR codes. So the kids would go along and pick out QR codes and different things would pop up. That's how the kids are going to relate to things these days.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Moving to Mr. Stevenson.
Well, as the incumbent, my first vote that I had to make on the board was HSE 21. And I unequivocally supported HSE 21 because of what it stands for. I agree with Mr. Whalen that the perception has been that HSE 21 is just about laptops or about iPads, and it's so much more than that. HSE 21 is primarily an objective that allows us to ensure that all of our students are getting the content knowledge that they need to move on to solve problem-based learning initiatives that we have. Employers have told us that they're not primarily concerned with what our students know, but how do they use what we know. So the HSE 21 allows us to use the knowledge that they receive in their core curriculum areas, but to apply that in a critical and creative learning environment that more of our kids will be engaging as it relates to the initiative. So I'm in total support of HSE 21.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Jones.
As already has been stated, I mean, HSE 21 and the one-to-one initiative are not the same thing. HSE 21 is about a teaching approach. It's about inquisitive-based, project-based, collaborative-based learning that the kids can do as a group or in a team or individually. It gives the teachers a lot of flexibility to teach kind of in the way that kids are going to act and be and participate when they get to the real world. So for me, I'm absolutely buying HSE 21 because when I hire people, I look for aptitude, I look for the skill to adapt because things are changing so fast, that's what's critical. Now having said that, one-to-one and computers continue to be a hot topic and associated with that. And there are issues there. There are issues of screen time. There are issues of security, kids getting onto the VPNs and private VPNs and a lot of technology issues that we're facing, like projectors not working in the high school. And those are all things that have to be addressed too. But the computer is a tool, just like a pencil is a tool, and helping our teachers understand and how that can be applied to HSE 21 or any of the regular curriculum is something that we definitely have to continue to work with and support as a board and as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Scheffler.
As already has been stated, the HSE 21 is a new way of approaching learning. And it's not only for the students, but it's also for the instructors, the teachers, the educators, in the sense that they are hopefully with the new professional development that is going on, you'll be able to guide these young people into utilizing different tools in project learning and group learning. I'd even gone through one of the classes last couple weeks ago where the environment has changed and the iPad and the devices are only one tool that they are using. So it's a different way of approaching learning.
Thank you, Mrs. Shepwood. Mr. Bondorf.
Thank you. I should share that as part of my professional experience, I was fortunate enough to be part of the curriculum team that designed HSE 21, first as a parent volunteer, and then subsequently for 3 years as I worked here in Hamilton Southeastern Schools Technology Department. And I'd like to say that was a fantastic experience, and the team did a great job of developing that vision. But the HSE 21 is this vision of a new way of teaching and learning that some of the other candidates have mentioned. And I'd like to take that a step further and say we have to draw a line between that vision and what we're actually doing in the classroom. And there are a few key steps that can support that. One is the devices allow teachers to teach for mastery. So now the kids, every kid can reach a 90% or 100% score on whatever skills they're using because the tools allow them to learn in their own way and to learn at their own pace. The tools also allow students to create things and demonstrate their knowledge in ways that were not possible before. They can create videos, they can create songs, and they can do many things of that nature. So I think we need to take it a step further and move that down to the classroom practice more than we have in the past.
Okay, I'm going to allow a 30-second rebuttal on this. There's a little bit of disagreement, I think. And so in your rebuttal, if you can include like another question, because I like to follow, so we have another questioner who talked about introducing the ideas of technology in schools, which is a part of HSE 21, and the rollout strategy for it. And so as we continue to evolve HSE 21, what changes would you make, I think, in rolling it out in the future? And so 30 seconds timers, so there'll be no warning. It's 30 seconds, then stop. And we'll go in the same order that we just did. So Mr. Everett?
So the question has to do with the rollout.
Question has to do with the rollout and implementation of new ideas. So as a board member, what kind of changes would you make in what has been done thus far? What would you anticipate going in the future? 30 seconds or less.
Okay. I don't have a problem with the way the rollout went on this current version. I think we have to be very careful in future rollouts, especially with our youngest children in the district, that they are not overwhelmed, and as well the teachers need to be sufficiently trained and prepared for all the challenges that will come about with the next rollout.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. 30 seconds, Mrs. Shara.
I would say we need to get rid of the OneDrive collaborative space. We talked about group interaction, and I know my kids are having a lot of trouble with it, deleting material. Bring back Google, renegotiate the consistency of having several different sources used in several different departments, maybe try to get the departments on the same page communicating with students and family. That would be my biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shara. Mrs. Wright?
Well, just 2 comments. One, with the rollout, it's done. I just think it's a learning experience, and that I don't think you should ever put your students in front of your teachers, which is what happened, unfortunately, because my student had it as a 6th grader, and then he went to junior high, and the teachers had not had it. So just a learning thing from this point forward is I think you always put it in the teacher's hand first, so they're more proficient and comfortable. And then I guess the other point, lost my train of thought here. What was the rest of the question?
For the future HSE 21.
I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harness?
sure that as we're implementing the new methods, that we're not just forcing ourselves to go into tech, and making sure that we look at how we can integrate some of the ways that teaching has traditionally been done, and do those well, whether or not it's with tech or without.
Thank you, Mr. Harness. 30 seconds, Mr. Whalen.
So, as far as the rollout goes, I don't know that I would agree with, at the elementary level, the students all taking the iPads home every day. I think I'd be more inclined to have them leave it at school. I think there's a lot of controversy over that. I would also agree with Ms. Shera regarding the OneDrive and the Google switchover. I've heard a lot of noise from teachers, students, and staff about lack of training and switching being very confusing.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Mr. Stevenson.
I would say we learned a lot with the rollout of the HSE 21. Primarily, we learned that some of the parents who were having students come into our district for the first time as kindergartners, those parents were learning about the rollout by the time they were registering their kids. So I would say I would hone in on focusing on those new parents that we have in the district, and also consult with the Technology Advisory Committee that we have put together for each grade levels, get the insight from our community stakeholders, our parents, and utilize that information as we roll it out for our district.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Jones.
The rollout of the technology started 5 years ago. My daughter, 4 years ago, was in a second grade class using iPads here in HSE. So we've been rolling it out for a long time. It took a long time. And I think that we did a great job on that. What we didn't do was communicate and make people aware of what was going on. And we didn't listen to people. And when we first rolled it out, I don't think we listened enough. And I think we need to listen to our teachers, and we need to listen to our community. We need to listen to everybody on what works. Do we need keyboards in junior high? Do we need keyboards in middle school? Should they or shouldn't they use it on the bus? I mean, there's a lot of questions being asked that we just need to communicate and address.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Shepler.
Yes, the rollout has already gone through, but as we look forward to this, I want to consider more monitoring, more evaluation of the programming, and make sure that our teachers do have it, as already been suggested, before the students have it, whatever it is, if it's a device or if it's another modality for delivering instruction.
Thank you, Mrs. Shepler. Mr. Bodoff.
Thank you. I should also mention that my current job is Director of Technology for Indian Creek Schools. Last year we were 1-to-1 grades 5 through 12, and this year we're 1-to-1 grades K through 12. In about 2 weeks, I'm convening a committee to evaluate our implementation of 1-to-1, where we have both iPads and Chromebooks throughout our district. So I'm intimately familiar with the issues that come along with that. And I think one of the critical foundations for succeeding is providing the professional development, training, and support for the teachers so they can utilize those skills properly in the classroom. And we use Google.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bodoff. Always like the humor there. I'm going to move to the next question. I'm going to try to combine a couple of questions to get as many in as possible this evening. It's no secret, I think, that the city of Fishers has a mental health initiative, and the school system is a part of that. We're a partner with that. And so as a school board member, what's your vision for mental health at our schools, and how can the district address problems of mental health? What would you suggest moving forward? And in going along with that, with people who have a mental, I guess maybe that will be my question. So the mental health, and for those of you who don't know, the district did hire someone to coordinate recently at the recent board meeting, which most of these people were there. But it's going to take more than that, I guess. So this questioner wants to know what your vision is for mental health at HSE schools, and we're starting with Mr. Jones.
If I were listing my top prime initiatives. This would be one of them. I think mental health, being mental, social, emotional, I mean, there's a lot of characteristics there that we need to face and address. We have kids in our high school that are suffering from anxiety, that have a hard time just getting to high school. We need to figure out how to help those kids succeed and get through the day at school so they can get the education so that they can be productive in the world when they get out. I know that the school's got initiatives going and we're hiring people. That's fantastic. We've got the community behind this with Launch Fishers. We've got, the religious community behind it. I think that the town sees that this is an issue. I think as a school board and the school system, we need to get behind it and help these different ways or these different characteristics be helped and resolved, particularly in a high-performance school where we're pushing our kids in this district hard to be the best, to be at the top. And that puts a lot of stress and pressure on them, and we need to make sure we have the support system in our school behind those kids, again, just to get them to the end, to make sure they succeed and can do what they need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. The mental health initiative is extremely important. Amanda brought up safety earlier. As far as all the unfortunate incidents that occur in schools, this is a way to help nip it in the butt, stamp it out ahead of time. As far as the current initiative, we have hired the coordinator, and we'd be looking at, I think it's out to bid now for a couple different providers. We'd be looking at putting people in each school, and really a lot of it is awareness and how to get rid of the stigma out there of asking for help and going to see someone. This is something that I know that's big in the city of Fishers with Scott's mental health initiative, that he was actually just contacted by New York City to come speak over there to give them advice on both the schools and the city and the collaboration between the two.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Mrs. Scheffler.
Well, there are a lot of hurting students here, unfortunately, and yet I think that with our initiative in partnering with the city of Fishers, that we can do a lot to help these young people. Also, partnering with a lot of the faith-based organizations is real important, and giving them the freedom to do what they need to do to address. A lot of it is a hard issue with a lot of these young kids. And with the listening post, the crew, the student venture, the campus life, the HSEAs, those kind of things help. The teachers and the counselors are really not have time, nor do they have necessarily the background to address some of these issues. So having said that we went ahead and hired, that was a one step in the direction, and hopefully we can continue.
Thank you, Mrs. Scheffler. Mr. Everett.
Yes, last week at the school board meeting, I was there when they announced the hire of the new mental coordinator, and I was very pleased to hear that. I do know a school resource officer here in the district, and he was very happy to see that it happened. That takes a lot of stress off of them. It also will help take stress off of our teachers. So I was very pleased to see that. I also think it's a great benefit from our city as well, that there's a cooperative agreement going to go forward. Finally, with us now becoming, I believe, the fourth largest school district in the state of Indiana with 21,000 plus students, you're going to see more and more students come from much different family backgrounds, and they all are going to have issues, and we need to be there to support those kids and their families.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Mrs. Wright.
Well, a couple of things. One is, with referendum dollars, we were able to hire vice principals at all the elementary schools, which was fantastic because now that means the counselors at the elementary schools can be counselors and can work with the kids. Because before, ours was essentially an assistant principal and was running ISTEP, and now that is completely off of her plate. So even at our younger ages, at our K through 4, we can have our devoted to the kids and their needs, which hopefully then maybe helps them further down the path. I do think the hiring of the coordinator is fantastic. Hopefully we can get more training for the counselors that are in the schools to look for signs and symptoms of depression or suicidal thoughts. And finally, I know we talked about a community bulletin board, or Dr. Bork has talked about this as a different avenue of sharing information in the district, and it would be a great place to put parent groups. I know there is a parent at our school that is starting an ADD, ADHD support group, just for parents to bounce ideas off of.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. And Mr. Goddard.
I think this mental health initiative is a great positive step forward for both Hamilton Southeastern schools and the city of Fishers. I think it aligns very well with the HSE 21 concept of meeting kids where they are, meeting their needs, not just academically, but finding out what their needs are socially and emotionally. And so I think that this partnership is strong, and I think we should encourage continued movement in that direction. I tend to also like to challenge people and challenge communities and say, as we move forward with this positive program too, can we look for and investigate what are the sources of this problem? Because we're looking at treating it, and that's tremendous, and we need to help those kids, but why are so many kids coming into our schools feeling that way, or feeling left out, or having mental trouble? Is this unique to Fishers, or is it that, we're the only ones that are doing something about it? And if so, well, kudos to us for doing that. But let's keep taking steps forward and not just standing where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Mrs. Scherer.
Hi, I'm surprised that someone hasn't already brought up Youth Mentoring Initiative. I've signed up to be a mentor with that program, and they have a great initiative, the 2020 initiative, to have 600 mentors in the school by 2020. Numerous counselors are overwhelmed by the fact that even just in the high school, we have 400 to 500 kids per counselor. I think we need more counselors to get ahead of this problem, and then we need to get the Youth Mentoring Initiative and those mentors into the building, get them through the background checks and the training to get ahead of this program so that we're not waiting until the kids are failing a couple of classes or tardy or not coming in, so that teachers can just see a nuance and maybe refer a child. I'm pleased to see the mental health coordinator coming in. I would be curious to see how many we're going to be placing in each school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Scherer. Mr. Harness.
Yes, for me, the mental health is a big focus in my everyday life, because currently I have the third grader who's attending Harrison Parkway in their ED program, even though our homeschool is New Britain because of ADHD and anxiety things. So I think improving the overall scope of the program, I know that having to move him into another school was a big step, and if we are able to have more resources within each school, that wouldn't have been a necessary step. So the focus in the expansion really is a positive.
Thank you, Mr. Harness. No, I've lost my place. Mr. Stevenson.
Mental health is a very serious problem in our community. I was honored last week that at our school board meeting, we did hire Brooke Walson as our mental health specialist. That's phase one. We do have 21,000 students in our district, and we need to have this to go out to all of our students who need those services. So we're in the process of identifying providers who will provide that service to all of our students. Like some of the other candidates said today, this is a problem that the whole community has to embrace. And I'm proud to say that our city of Fishers and our Mayor Fadness has took the embrace of mental health as an issue for our community, and the collaboration that we have as a school district with the city of Fishers, I think, and our community stakeholders can come together and address this very vital issue that we have in our community. We are a very high-performing district, and our students are driven for excellence, but we have a correlation with that mental health that may come with that as well. So we need to be proactive with this issue as opposed to responding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Our next question refers to deaf and hard of hearing. Population in Hamilton County is 7%, and of those, a large number of people are unemployed or on public assistance. assistance. And as you noticed, for those of you in attendance this evening, HSEA did hire an interpreter for this evening. And the questioner wants to know, like as a school board member, how will you continue to provide services to people who are hard of hearing? Will you provide those services for field trips, for a classroom? What type of services do you see yourself providing to the community? And we'll start with Mr. Stevenson. Oopsie.
That's a great question, Janet. First and foremost, as a traditional public school district, we are given the responsibility to educate all of our students, regardless how they come to us. And deaf and hard of hearing is one of those issues that we need to address, continue to address. I think we need to have a dialogue and engage with those in the community who needs those services, and to ask them what do they need from us, because we can't be presumptuous that we know what they need. But I would say we need to have interpreters that are available to them and other services that we can provide to them on a continuing basis to provide that service.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Mrs. Scheffler.
Well, Mr. Stevenson has said it very well, and I would agree that we do need to address this as well as a lot of the other issues that might come about with the increased needs of these changing demographics that we have with these students. And I do believe that it'd be helpful for them to be along, the interpreters be along on field trips and on other classroom situations, maybe even making use of the technology. There might be some apps in there that will be helpful in addressing that as well, and being able to have these students understand what's going on and be able to learn. So I would say that we do need to have at least the financing for that to address that. And I do like the idea of having it to be a communication with the deaf community.
Thank you, Mrs. Scheffler. Mr. Baudoff.
First of all, I think that's a great question. That's a portion of our community that is sometimes very much overlooked, along with a variety of other different groups in our large student population that are overlooked. I do think we should look into providing interpreters or other potential supports as students go on field trips, but I would also second what Ms. Scheffler said about leveraging technology tools to help those students. I work closely with our special education director at Indian Creek Schools, and we've managed to deploy a number of apps to our iPads or to our Chromebooks that assist those students in their learning processes and not only help them read and follow along and write and learn their skills, but also provide feedback to them as they learn. So I think we should leverage both of those tools that are available to us to provide the instruction that students need in the most efficient manner possible.
Thank you, Mr. Baudoff. Mr. Jones.
I'm running for board, and there's a lot going on in the school district, and I don't know everything. And this is a stat I hadn't heard, but there's a lot of areas where I've heard stats and I know the numbers. This is a bigger stat than I would have ever guessed. So this is an area, as a board member, if I'm a board member, I will have to learn and educate. I do know from having a child with a speech impediment that there are accommodations, and at the end of the day, we need to look at the state and federal programs that are out there to make sure that they provide whatever they don't provide as a school district. We need to provide whatever it takes to make sure every individual within our school, every kid, can have the best chance to succeed and do the best job they can, so that when they leave our school, they're best prepared to meet the world. And if that means we need to figure out how to get interpreters, or we need to figure out, whatever it is specific to those individual children, we need to figure out how to make that work within the budget constraints we obviously have. But if we're going to spend our money on things, I would rather see us spend our money helping that child get ahead than on building new walls for assistant principals or having the latest, greatest technology. I think at the end of the day, it's the kids first in all our decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mrs. Scherer.
We are a public school system and we are required to educate all. I would say I have a son that's high functioning autistic, and we delayed his diagnosis because I was embarrassed. And when I finally came forward, there were so many resources available. I feel like I shorted him a little bit the last couple of years. So I would say to a family in any sort of situation to communicate with the school, and those services would be provided through an IEP or a 504 plan. And of course, we would want a child to appreciate all of the benefits, including field trips and outings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Scherer. Mr. Harness.
Yeah, I think, I think it's important for all of our students to learn, all of our students to have the same experiences. So expanding the availability to an interpreter is great, and I think using technology would be a good thing to use for this case, because it's a perfect use case for that. Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, that's all. I can't expand more on everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Harness. Mrs. Wright.
Being deaf or hard of hearing is a disability like every other disability that we would deal with. So as a public school, of course, we're required to provide the services needed for that particular student or individual. And I think you take it on a case-by-case basis, because as all students are different, disabilities can be different too. So it's to the degree of hearing loss, and we just need to consult with the student to find what works best for them to make sure that they have the same learning opportunities as anyone else.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Mr. Everett.
Thank you very much. What a great question, and absolutely great answers from everyone else. There's not a whole lot I can add, other than I would challenge, whether it be the existing school board now or the school board that takes office in January, to examine this issue very closely and make sure that the appropriate amount of funding is in place, whether it be to aid in technology assistance for these students or additional interpreters at all our schools. But like I said, I would challenge the existing school board or the new school board to address this issue. It's a very important issue going forward with our growing school district.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Finally, Mr. Whalen.
Well, I would agree. What a great question, and I would concur with Mr. Jones that we would need to examine all of the funding sources first, whether they be federal or state, and then whatever's left as a public institution we would have to provide. With that said, I would also say let's expand not only to looking at this particular community, but the other communities of need, and make sure that we're serving everyone, not just those that come forward. I think we need to be proactive in looking at these items rather than just reactive. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to reach out to all of these people?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Whalen. Our next question is going to consider 3 different levels of schooling. All right, so we're going to go early childhood, non-traditional high school students, and adults. And so, as a school board member, what would be your vision to engage preschools and daycares to improve early learning? And then how are you going to, moving forward, how do you support the high school student who isn't going to go to college? And then, would you be willing or able to use buildings to promote adult learning classes? So early childhood with preschools and daycares, non-traditional high school students, and for not going to college, and then lastly, adult learning. So I have got 3 questions in one, and you can do it. And we're going to start with Mrs. Scherer.
That's not fair.
You haven't gone first yet, so it's within my grip.
Okay, early childhood learning, let's see. I'm not going to answer this question correctly. I'm going to watch the timer. I would say we want them to read preschool. We want kids to read, get a library card, it's free. Both my kids knew how to read.